Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the FPPC meeting. As you can tell, we are not in San Jose. We are, as I said last time, we will be in San Jose at the next meeting, June 20th, and the meeting will start at noon at the Board of Supervisors chambers in San Jose. We, in an effort, because this is going to be a relatively short meeting, we thought that it would be prudent for us to stay here in gorgeous Sacramento, right next to the Kings Arena. So, excuse me. You can speak at the public comments. Yeah, so we're very happy to be here. So that actually is my report, except for I did want to mention, and I think perhaps Tina will speak about this a little bit later, but the filing period has ended for the executive director search. It ended yesterday, and we have lots of really good applicants, and I believe that the subcommittee is going to meet to determine who they want to interview and then who they will pass on to me, although they're going to be discussing their process, and all of that process is just so everybody knows, independent of me, and they're going to be making those decisions independently and then pass on however number of candidates they suggest to me. So, sure.
Tina Bass. I was just going to say that we just received 24 applicants, and we're getting ready to meet on the process, as you said, and plan to move fairly quickly on it. So that was all I wanted to say. Okay. So instead of waiting till later.
All right, that's good. Thank you. So would you like to call the? Oh yes, and I also wanted to mention that Commissioner Escovitz is in trial, and so he is unable to be here either in person or on the phone today.
Excuse me. So do we still have an open line with him?
No.
Did we notice that?
No, we re-noticed it.
Super. Thank you.
We re-noticed it. Thank you.
Commissioner Kasher?
Here.
Commissioner Wasserman?
Here.
Commissioner Wynn?
Here.
Chair Rabel?
Here. Thank you. So now is the time on the agenda for public comment. Is there anybody either in the audience or on the phone that would like to come forward and speak in the public comment section about a matter that is not on the agenda? Mr. Ung.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Commission. Philip Ong, for the record, on behalf of California Common Cause. This is very sensitive all of a sudden. Sorry. It's a new microphone. And I know that you had planned a short meeting, so I hate to be the party crasher, but not like Common Cause has ever not been the party crasher prior. So for the record, I do want to say for Mr. Winnick, go Lakers. That's why I wanted some order. Just kidding.
Madam Chair, can we cut the mic?
But I also, seriously, there are some issues that have come to the attention of Common Cause that we wanted to bring to the attention of the Commission. And one of those issues, and this is, let me give some context. The issues that we're bringing up today is a small part of a larger list of recommendations we plan on presenting to the Commission over the next few months that we believe will help make the Commission more efficient, more transparent, and more accessible to the public. Just so you know, Common Cause is a group for the last 43 years has aimed to hold power accountable. And as a government agency, we very much see ourselves as the watchdog of the watchdog. And so these recommendations are meant to be to start a constructive discussion and not at all to attack staff or the Commission or any past leadership or current leadership. The first thing we'd like to bring up is we would urge the Commission to have a vibrant legislative discussion about the bills that are in front of you on your tracking list. Of the bills that are on your list, more than half of them have never been discussed by this commission or voted on. Specifically, the reason why we bring this up, for full disclosure, Common Cause and the League of Women Voters are the sponsors of Senate Bill 2 and 3. And we have been very cooperative and open with what our intentions are with these bills with staff. And recently we have heard from staff that they're unable to give us policy recommendations because they can't speak for the commission. And so we have waited the last couple meetings for some feedback from the commission, and unfortunately we haven't had that vibrant discussion. And so we're bringing it up now in public comment in hopes that we can kind of kick that thing going. We are 5 months now into the legislative process, and I know many of the legislators look forward to the constructive criticism or any recommendations from the commission, so we think that would be very helpful. Another issue on the legislative discussion is for the tracking report. We would appreciate it if staff would include their fiscal analysis that they have forwarded to the legislature. I'm not sure how much the commission or staff is aware of it, but the fiscal analysis from not just this agency, but most agencies are usually in dispute at the legislature. And legislators don't really know where these analyses come from or what accountability is put behind the fiscal analysis of how much a bill costs and why other bills are less costly than some bills. And so we think that that detail should also be included in your legislative report. I'll go ahead and move on now to an enforcement issue and it's more of a process issue, and hopefully Mr. Winnick can clarify either later in the meeting or during public comment. But we would like some clarity as to when an enforcement action gets a more detailed stipulation printed versus a less detailed stipulation. The issue that the specific case that we are talking about today is the issue of Mr. Rubio. And as you know, is a very high-profile case throughout the state because he's a former senator who left and seems to have some real estate dealings. And Common Cause was asked to comment on the proposed fine on Mr. Rubio. We were looking for some facts as to what the discovery or what the investigation was, and only were encountered with a 2-page stipulation with no detail at all as to the investigation, where other investigations have much more detailed stipulations. And so we would just like some clarity as to what is the threshold where a detailed stipulation occurs and when it doesn't. I think the public deserves to know that. I can stop there, Madam Chair, if you have any comments or questions.
Perhaps you could respond to that.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Gary Winnick, Chief of Enforcement. Specifically on Rubio, I mean, we could spend a lot of time talking about what makes something streamlined versus not. Maybe I'll just deal with Rubio specifically first. We knew there was a lot of interest in the other parts of the complaint. We actually sent an advisory letter that's published on our website right now. I have a copy if you want it. That details our analysis of the other issues that weren't necessarily discussed in the stipulation. For that reason, for the exact reasons talking about, to be transparent and to make sure the public had an understanding of what we considered and what we viewed, and then why we came to our decision. So we actually took an extra step for that case to put out the advisory letter, not only for Mr. Rubio, which is generally why we send an advisory letter out, but also just to explain our actions and put them out in front in the public so it could be viewed.
So thank you for bringing this to our attention, Mr. Ong, and thanks, Mr. Winnick, for that explanation. I, of course, am new here, so as I was going through the binders, I was surprised that some of these reports are 14 pages, and then there's that form,
Sure.
2-page. So I would love to, maybe just in the coming months, talk about why some get the more detailed. Is it because they're just so much more complex, and why some get the 2-page? I mean, when I'm reading this binder,
Sure.
I'm appreciative for the 2 pages, but I don't want to, give any case short shrift. So.
Right, no, understood. When we kind of did your initial briefing, I know we threw a lot of information at all of you in the first few days. We laid out the criteria that we use to evaluate when something is put in a streamlined category versus not. So I'll be happy to go over that if you want something more public. We could even do it right now if you want to, but either way.
So I still have that binder
Yeah.
with me, so I'll go through that, and then if I have further questions, I do remember
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
So I'll look at it before I ask you to go through it again. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, in general, we're looking at, dollar amounts, level of sophistication. There's specific direction from the commission on major donor reports and limited and late contribution reports. We've tried to expand that program to get a greater universe where we're trying to find the appropriate level, but generally it's related to dollar amounts, pre-election, post-election statements, and then articulated level of public harm and sophistication of the parties are the general rules.
Thank you. I mean, I do have a follow-up to that, which a request, in fact, that if there are advisory letters that are related to stipulations or proposed fines, we would request that the advisory letters be at least attached or linked next to the fine if possible. It just causes us to search more on the website how to find the details of this case when some have detailed stipulations, as the commissioner mentioned, and some don't.
It seems to me that in this case and in others that they may not be actually related to the particular matter that is being under consideration by the commission, and it would be inappropriate to link them. I mean, there could be issues, and I'm not talking about Rubio in specific, and you can if you want, but sometimes people have advisory letters about totally unrelated matters, and I don't think that it would be
Right.
the correct process for individuals who are the subject of these stipulations to have all of those matters displayed in one item.
And truthfully, if I may, Madam Chair, this in the 4+ years I've been here is the first time I think we've put out advisory letters specifically related to a stipulation, so it doesn't happen a lot. And honestly, it got so much coverage that maybe it was my oversight, but I didn't think to link it just because it got so well covered that the information of our analysis I thought was out there.
And it's also my understanding from the conversation Mr. Winnick just had with the commissioner that there is a document that describes when cases get streamlined and when they get a shorter stipulation than others. Is that document available on the website, or is that an internal document that is not shared with the public for, various reasons?
Madam Chair, if I may, the briefing was one that was done to the commissioner, so that was an internal document, but really we've put it out, I think, in a number of formats. I've done a public presentation probably 30 to 35 times on it. I'm happy to share with you. It's an open process as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, thank you. And the last comment on a totally different issue is actually on the commission's regulatory process. Couple weeks ago, I think it was a week ago, that the commission noticed the regulation for paid online communication. Common Cause would just like some clarity as to the process of how notices get noticed, who makes those decisions. We know that there were IP meetings leading up to this notice a few months ago, and then it was pretty quiet as to where the issue stood. Based on minutes from the last meeting, there was nothing in the general counsel report or any discussion from the commission that there was a notice coming, and then a notice was issued. Where we're concerned is that when a notice is issued to the public in regards to regulation, Common Cause and I think some regulated parties assume that this is official language from the commission. That the commissioners have signed off on the language that is proposed, because it is a commission notice to the public. And Madam Chair, I know you disagree with that, but that is the discussion that is happening publicly. That this language is a notice from the commission. It doesn't say a staff notice; it says a commission notice, and the assumption is that this is language from the commission that the commission has already approved and already reviewed. We would like the commission to look at the regulation that dictates the rulemaking process, because when I looked back as to when something gets noticed and who has the power, I guess that's the word I'm thinking of, to release a notice, there are two sections that specifically mention the commission or commission staff can either call an IP meeting or a pre-notice hearing, but there is no specific explicit description of who can notice a filing for the commission. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And I'm sure
Mr.
Mr. Morazzini has some
Morazzini.
comments.
Sure. This is Zach
Are
Morazzini,
you
General
calling
Counsel.
on him?
No, I'm sorry. I just referenced it.
I'm happy to try to address these issues. In terms of determining what is getting noticed and what is up for agenda, that is initially in the regulatory scheme. That's my initial call because I am in charge of the regulatory amendments that come before the commission. In terms of what gets noticed, the language that goes to OAL 45 days in advance is essentially placeholder language, which is legally required. In terms of who gets, is that an official commission act? That might just be nomenclature. I can research that further for you. This is the way it's generally been done in most regulatory agencies. But I think if all else fails, one of the answers is that the chair is specifically authorized to act on behalf of the commission in between meetings. And we have a document of governance principles, which is in your briefing binders, commissioners, which sets forth the role of the chair in between meetings. And it also, I think, describes the regulatory process we go through. So if any of you have concerns about the process we go through, I'm happy to look into it and we can discuss it in a public meeting. But this is the process. I'm happy to discuss with you further, Philip, if there's some changes you would like to propose.
Absolutely.
Well, let me also add to that you know, the noticing is required by OAL, and there is no decision by the commission about the underlying merits of the particular regulation that is being proposed. This is the process that the FPPC has undertaken with respect to regulations for as long as I can remember. On every regulation, you've been here for many years, you know, observing the work of the commission, and all regulations go through this exact same process.
Sure.
All of them do.
Madam Chair, and if I may, that's the purpose of the 45-day window. And as I'm sure you've experienced in the past, my staff and I are open to potential amendments and language changes during that period. We do hold the IPs well in advance to try to get the language as close as possible to perfect as we think it can be. A lot of that depends on the interested persons and how engaged they are at the time. It's been my experience that we don't get some of the best input until very late in the game. People take that 45-day window for granted, in my experience, but it's there, and it's there for a reason, so that we can keep working on the language that staff has developed with the interested parties, and then when it comes to game time, hopefully have something that everybody is on board with.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Morazzini. I understand that what the chair had said, that this is traditionally how it's been. As a reform group, we don't usually, I mean, tradition is great, but we think it's okay to bring up changes or recommended changes to the process if we believe there should be changes. We have obviously participated in the traditional process, and we're more than glad to continue to participate in it, but we think a more predictable process or more predictable processes would be helpful to the regulated community and even those of us who aren't necessarily regulated by the FPPC. The last thing, I don't know if I said the last thing was the last thing, but oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so I can end. No, the last thing we'd bring up is actually we think is would be very helpful, and I think not just an exercise, but like I said, greatly helpful to the commission, is we were looking on your website, as we do usually, for a strategic plan. And the last one that we could find was from 2006 to 2010, or at least it was dated from 2006 to 2010. And so I'd like to take this moment to encourage or urge the commission to go through another strategic plan process to lay out a vision for this commission that extends past any one chair or any one executive director. This commission, by law, goes through a lot of turnover because of term limits, and we want to make sure that this agency has a direction regardless of who's in leadership or the turnover. And we think that would be a very constructive conversation, especially as a new executive director is chosen. And so I would just end there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak in the public comment portion? Okay, hearing none. We have before us, and we'll take these separately. Item number 2, which is the approval of the April 2013 Commission meeting minutes. Is there a question about the minutes from anybody on the Commission? Anybody in the audience?
Madam
Is there a
Chair,
motion?
I just wanted to make sure, I believe the corrected minutes were sent out.
Yes.
Okay, that,
Yes,
that
they were.
reflect that I only abstained from one item, item 11. Okay, thank you.
Yes. So this is the corrected minutes. The first minutes that went were corrected.
I move approval of the corrected minutes.
Second.
Commissioner Casher,
Yes.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Wynn,
Yes.
Chair Ravel.
Yes, thank you. Okay. The remainder of the consent items are 3 through 13. Is there anybody that would like to remove an item from consent for discussion?
Madam Chair, before I do that, the staff would like to remove item 8 and bring that back to the commission at a future date.
Thank you. With item 8 removed. Are there any requests to remove any other item from 3 through 13 except item 8? Okay, hearing none. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on any of these items or have them removed?
I think it's mentioned that the consent actually goes to 14. Just for,
It's okay. I'm reading it from the top of the.
my staff is very detail oriented.
I appreciate that. I was just reading it from the top of the page. Okay. So the proposed consent item is 3 through 14 with item 8 removed.
I move that we approve items number 3 through 13, well, with the removal of item 8.
14.
14, sorry.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Casher,
Yes.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Wynn,
Yes.
Chair Ravel.
Yes. Okay. We are now on to item 15, which is executive staff reports. And the first report, Ms. Brar and Mr. Morosini, is the legislative report.
Hi, good morning, Chair Ravel and Commissioners. My legislative report is as submitted, and I just wanted to give you a little update on our supported and sponsored bills since the date of the report. AB 45, 552, 800, and 1090 are going to be heard on the Assembly floor today. AB 914 is going to be heard in Assembly Appropriations next week, and SB 27 is on the suspense file in Senate Appropriations. And so, SB 27.
Yes.
So have there been any significant amendments in any of those bills since we last saw them?
Not since the date of this report with the bills in the report. Not significant ones.
Could I ask Mr. Morosini, perhaps you could respond now to a couple of the issues that were raised by Mr. Ung with respect to the legislative process?
Sure. Zach Morosini, General Counsel. Our plan here in terms of legislation with bills that aren't sponsored or supported by the Commission is to see where they end up as they go through the process. Generally speaking, bills are amended multiple times before they make it out of Policy Committee, make it out of Appropriations Committee, and some never make it out of committee. So I think the next, probably by, when would you think? Maybe by June, July, we will have a detailed memo with the legislation other than ours with staff recommendations on positions, which is plenty of time in the legislative process. This is the earliest we've really asked for commission positions on bills, and that's because staff was working hand in hand with legislators. But generally speaking, in sessions past, we wait till bills make it further down the road in the legislative process. So
Yes.
we're happy to change that if you like.
Commissioner.
Thank you very much. I would only ask, since we have been asked today to review SB2 and SB3, And since we, have a write-up on it, would there be any reason why we wouldn't consider? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was on. I'm sorry. Would there be any, reluctance to have a conversation about SB2 and SB3 today to see if there was an ability for us to take a position?
I don't think we can take a position because it is not noticed for
Thank
that
you.
purpose.
Okay. Thank you.
But we're happy to, if you'd like that sooner than I was originally planning. Yeah. Well, it's too late to do it for June. There's no July. So August, we can have a position on all these bills by August, if that's what the Commission's wish is.
Why is it too late for June?
Because, actually, no, it's not too late for June. We only need a 10-day notice. I'm sorry. I was thinking the 45 days for regulatory amendments. June would be possible if you'd like SB2 and SB3 up at
I
June.
think we should. I don't know why we would hesitate if we've been asked and it is relevant to the work of the Commission.
Sure.
I would suggest we talk about it sooner than later.
Okay.
Okay.
And could I ask you also, with respect to the issue about the fiscal analysis, while I know that because we had our own bills and we determined that we were sponsoring and we determined that they were not going to be of great fiscal consequence to the FPPC, it would make sense to have a fiscal analysis accompany any of this discussion.
Sure. Happy to do that, Madam Chair.
Thank
Have
you.
we done fiscals on all the bills so far? We generally wait. If we're not sponsoring or supporting the bill, we generally wait until a committee asks us for a fiscal analysis. And then our process here is to send an email out to all division chiefs and have each division go through the bill and come up with their fiscal analysis. And then we compile that and send it on. But for those that we do have one and those that we can prepare one on, we will do that for the June memo and positions.
Great.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions, Commissioner Wasserman?
Thank you. I see that with some of the other bills out there that we haven't taken a position on, et cetera, there's at least one where they really don't have their language yet together at all. It's really just stating an intent. So certainly we wouldn't be addressing that. Are there any others that are ripe for discussion in June?
There are several. All of the ones that have language in them could be ripe for discussion in June.
Mm-hmm. And if not reviewed in June, we'd be seeing them in August.
Sure.
There's no July meeting. And I'll be in Hawaii, so.
What are the other bills that are pending that we have not yet had a conversation about?
So there's SB2, SB3.
They're all listed in item 16.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all in the legislative report, actually. SB 52.
Some are quite complicated and quite expansive. SB 52 is commonly referred to as the Disclose Act. Discussion of that could take its entire meeting in and of itself, but I certainly think it's worthy of engaging in because it's some wide-ranging proposed changes to our jobs here at the Commission. So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
This will be in San Jose.
Right.
June's a little quick for all. Would it be possible? Would it be? I might want to break this up because there's a lot of legislation out there that impacts the Political Reform Act and our jobs here. So perhaps I'll prioritize SB2 and SB3 as requested and pick a few others and then save the remainders for August if that's acceptable, because that could be a potentially very long day because there's a lot of policy issues here for the chair and the commissioners to decide upon.
And that sounds eminently reasonable. So.
Okay.
Does that
Does
that sound fine?
Great.
Yeah.
All right. So
Thank you.
It's at your discretion, but it would be good to be able to discuss some of the major bills. And I understand the Disclose Act is complicated and is also in the process of being changed,
Correct.
as we know. But that is one that is fairly significant and has a lot of notice in the public.
Sure. And I'll be clear. My intent here is do SB 52 later at a later date. We just staff just met with the sponsors of SB 52, and the current written language of the bill is not what it's going to be. They took some very significant language out to work on more, and they received some input from me and my staff and enforcement as well, and they're planning on bringing that back into the bill. So it would be a little premature to try to do an analysis before seeing all the language that's at issue. So if that's acceptable, that's how I'll proceed.
Yes, please.
It's absolutely acceptable for this commissioner. I do think, though, that Mr. Ung made a good point. If we're not willing to take positions on bills, it makes it harder for the legislature. I mean, we are really supposed to be the enforcement, and I'm sure they are relying on us. It would make a difference to legislators what the FPPC was saying. So I understand staff constraints, and I think the timeline that you have come up with is reasonable, but I really do feel like if we really do want this to work, it's incumbent upon us to develop positions and comments for the legislative process. So thank you.
Sure. And just to clarify, I think this is my responsibility and my error here, not being clear with what my plans were down the road in terms of bringing all legislation to the commissioner. So I'm glad we clarified that. Thank you, Mr. Ung.
I had a follow-up question. We have legislation that's been brought before us and that we've made, we have an opinion on. Of the ongoing legislation that's currently presented in the first portion of item 16, has the bill sponsors approached staff regarding recommendations regarding all of those? Are there some bill sponsors who haven't approached staff for opinions? Where does it fall on that?
Somewhere in the middle. Some sponsors have just came to us for technical assistance and getting our kind of initial responses to their proposed language. Some have asked for co-sponsorship down the road, and staff is, this is all going to be reflected in the memo.
Okay.
As to what the current status of every piece of legislation is. So.
Okay.
If perhaps that's worthy of a little bit of an augmented answer, because based on what Mr. Ung said, staff works with anybody that is interested in amending the Political Reform Act and always provides technical advice and also gives initial views about either the cost to the commission in having to enforce bills, but also any potential constitutional or other legal concerns, because of course we have to defend them if they're enacted. So it's not as if our staff doesn't spend a lot of time meeting with legislators and their staff and proponents of bills to discuss all the intricacies of the Political Reform Act and how their bills will change and what the ultimate ramifications might be.
And I was really more interested, and I appreciate the point. I could also imagine it being the case where bill sponsors wouldn't approach staff early on, and sometimes not at all. So more just to clarify the level of involvement in staff as it relates to each of these bills. And I think it's just useful to know if maybe they haven't approached staff at all for opinions or insights, because that's useful for information for us as well.
Sure, we can certainly include that information in the report. Yeah. I agree, that would be helpful. And just to be clear, all parties we discuss with are made fully aware that this is not official commission position. When my staff and I are giving recommendations, first impressions, and so forth, they know that if they disagree with staff, they can always come to the commission with their concerns. So we make it crystal clear, even when we're working with legislators, that I might think this is great, the commission might disagree, and that's what really matters. So.
Okay. Is there anything further on legislation? All right. Legal Division report.
As submitted, unless there
are there any questions by the commissioners? Okay. Technical assistance as submitted. Any questions by the commissioners on the TAD report? Okay. Are there any other items to come before the commission? Questions, Anybody in the audience? All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Commissioner Casher,
Yes.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Wynn. Yes. Chair Ravel.
Yes. Thank you. And so, as indicated earlier, the next meeting will be June 20th at the Board of Supervisors Chambers in San Jose, 70 West Heading Street, at noon. Thank you all very much. We are adjourned.
It's really cool. I went at Christmas time. Oh yeah. This past Christmas was really good. Yeah. It is something we should turn everything.